It was a very good week for pro wrestling fans, but now we got some big news stories. We're going to kick things off with some AEW news. Let's start off with some Bryan Danielson. He revealed at the AEW Forbidden Door 2 pay-per-view media scrum that he may have fractured his arm, and it looks like Bryan Danielson could be out 6 to 8 weeks. This is interesting because we're getting very, very close to AEW All In and All Out, which we know those will be separated a week apart. With Bryan Danielson getting injured, obviously, if you guys follow my channel, you know I hate to see it. I hate to hear about injuries. It definitely sucks. I feel like health always becomes a priority before wealth. And when you look at Bryan Danielson and everything that he's been doing in AEW lately, I mean, it's just obvious that a lot of people seem to enjoy what he's doing, and he's doing a really good job with it, right? It definitely feels like Bryan Danielson, he's made sure to be different than what he was in WWE when he was obviously Daniel Bryan, right? And I feel like a lot of people seem to enjoy this version of him. I actually enjoy both versions of him. I like to see him be this really badass pro wrestler. I liked watching him do the funny stuff in WWE at times too. But nonetheless, it just goes to show you how talented this guy really is. And when he has an injury like this, it's obviously a very big deal. Keep in mind, Bryan Danielson missed Forbidden Door last year due to injury. This year, he was able to go on in the main event against Okada, which obviously a lot of people have different mixed opinions about, and I'll let you guys decide for yourself what you overall thought about it. But with Bryan Danielson being injured, having a fractured arm, could he be missing All In? Could he be missing All Out? Is this a situation where they completely pull him away from TV? Is this a situation where he could still be involved in TV? Those are the things that I want to know about, because being part of BCC, I don't feel like Danielson actually has to wrestle all the time. So that is definitely a way around it. Guys. Oh, man. Okay, so we're going to talk about this because the reality is this is getting really, really annoying. Today I wake up and I see an article about AEW's FTR and the Young Bucks. And there's been multiple reports about this. But basically what this comes down to is last week we were talking about the divisiveness backstage because of CM Punk being backstage. Now yesterday, Fightful Select reported that CM Punk and Kenny Omega were kept on opposite sides of the arena. Okay. Today, Dave Meltzer noted that all is well between the Bucks and FTR. Brian Alvarez noted that the locker rooms for Punk and the Elite were kept far apart and they never interacted during the show. So keep in mind, a week ago, there is all this divisiveness happening because CM Punk is there. This week, there doesn't seem to be an issue. As you can imagine, a lot of fans are really annoyed by this type of reporting and stuff like that. And look, I'm going to tell you guys this. Whether it's real, whether it's fake, whether it's a work, whether it's not, it doesn't really matter. At this point, there is so much interest in what is happening in this particular situation that I think it is actually causing people to be annoyed by it all. Right? There's so much interest here. If they are all on good terms, if everything is good, just do the damn match. Do the damn match. Figure it out. Make the match work. Because I think people are going to be very turned off by this idea of every few days a new report drops about the backstage environment surrounding CM Punk and FTR and the Young Bucks and Kenny and all of these different things. I don't think that is helpful to the company. I think you're going to piss off fans, right? At this point, the best thing that you can do is put the match out there. Build up the storyline, build up the feud, just put the match out there. Because I'm telling you guys, you're starting to see the reactions. People are starting to boo CM Punk. And they're booing CM Punk for something that never even took place on television. That's the reality. They're booing CM Punk based on the fact that, this is backstage reporting. Every week, there's something about CM Punk that's anti-CM Punk. And then you have to wonder, because there's literally fans, I see the comments on YouTube, there's fans who are like, well, maybe Meltzer's in on this. And I don't believe that, but I can understand why people would get that impression that Dirt Sheets could be part of this, right? I think at the end of the day, if everything backstage is good, make the match happen. If the backstage stuff is divisive, if everybody's divisive, if there's an issue between everybody, keep them separate, no more drama. But at some point, every single week, there is a different type of report. There's backstage drama. There's backstage divisiveness. People are uncomfortable. You got people walking out in a bad mood because CM Punk is here. Then the next week, it's like, everything's all good. Okay? I just think a lot of people are being turned off by it. And in reality, there is a lot of interest in this, and it never took place on TV. Just make the match happen. If everything is good, make the match happen. If nothing is good, stop. No more. Let's not feed into this. Whoever's feeding the dirt sheets, whatever, just end it. I just think this is a really good scenario for AEW because a lot of people are invested into this particular topic. But the fact is, there's also a lot of people who are annoyed by it. So the more and more and more that they get annoyed by it, if there's no final solution or resolution to this, I feel like it's going to draw people away. I want to turn our attention to WWE. We're going to talk a little bit about Carmelo Hayes because it sounds like there could very well be a big debut for tonight on Raw. And yeah, it would be Carmelo Hayes, and I think that would actually be really cool. Now, keep in mind, Boozer Wrestling, BWE, has come out and said that there is a potential Carmelo Hayes match for WWE Raw against a big main event talent. You got to wonder who that could potentially be. Carmelo Hayes currently holds the NXT Championship, doing a hell of a job doing it. We know at NXT Gold Rush Day 2, he's going to have a match against Baron Corbin. This is a really good idea, in my opinion. We saw WWE NXT really benefit a lot from Seth Rollins coming in. I think WWE having NXT talent, when they're currently in storylines with WWE main roster talent, I think the idea of having them actually be on Raw or SmackDown, I think it helps NXT, but also it kind of helps you get an idea of who can benefit from being on the main roster. What type of reaction are they getting? That type of thing. Carmelo Hayes making his debut on Raw could be a really good thing. It could be a really good sign of what's to come. Keep in mind, post SummerSlam, WWE is planning more call-ups. I think this is a good way for WWE to see what the overall reaction could be like. And that actually brings us to our final topic of the day. Guys, I'm getting tired of this stuff. Friday Night SmackDown, we heard that there was a whole bunch of edits to the show. Vince McMahon changed a lot of things last minute. And I've always been very keen on saying that, if Vince isn't backstage, if he isn't causing madness, we really shouldn't get mad at the fact that he's causing script changes, right? Because at the end of the day, that's not information we should be privy to, right? A lot of this information that happens behind the scenes, and this applies to AEW, all this stuff is information that we shouldn't be privy to. And I think a lot of people are making judgments on something that they don't really necessarily know if real or not, right? However, we do know that there is a new report that came out. Multiple reporters have come out. Dave Meltzer was also recently talking about this. But basically, there is a ton of frustration in the company with Vince McMahon making changes at the last second. Because essentially what is happening is WWE, Nick Khan, Triple H, they have this idea of what the show is supposed to be like in advance. They have the script. They have everything planned. And then last second, you have Vince McMahon changing basically everything. And it doesn't sound like this happens all the time, but this has become an issue where essentially WWE people are frustrated and they're trying to figure out a way to stop him from doing this. Look, the reality is, and you guys know how I feel, I've been saying this since day one. Vince has always been in the shadows working with creative. But that entire time, we never heard of Vince McMahon changing scripts. It wasn't literally until Monday Night Raw after WrestleMania where we start hearing about this. And I think the most important thing for WWE, as they go into this merger with Ari Emanuel for Endeavor, they got to figure a way to stop this. Because it looks like they're trying to force him out of creative. And you know what? It's very, very interesting how all of this is going down, considering Vince McMahon is back in power. You give somebody an inch, they take a yard. And that's what happened with Vince. That's kind of what happened with Vince, right? So the reality here is that people are trying to get Vince out of this position from changing creative and doing all of these different things. And when you look at these reports and you look at WWE, I feel like WWE and AEW right now are both very hot products. They're both very good. They're both different products. They're two different areas of, they're going to be successful in different ways. WWE, doesn't really matter how you want to sugarcoat this or not. They're very, very successful. And WWE's been having this trajectory where they just keep going up, up, and up, and then you eventually hear Vince McMahon making changes. Again, this is the information we shouldn't be privy to. Just like the Elite story, we shouldn't be privy to this information. It's all the backstage stuff. But now we've become invested in this because it starts to emotionally bother you, right? It starts to emotionally bother people when they see, hey, I enjoy WWE. Now you got this guy changing everything in the last second, and then it ruins it, right? And I get it. I understand everybody's perspective on this, but at the end of the day, I think if you're the WWE, you gotta have a process that works. And if you're AEW, you gotta have a process that works, because creatively, it doesn't matter who you sign, right? WWE could have the greatest roster, AEW could have the greatest roster, but if you're not fulfilling people's creative needs, you're gonna have people lose interest, and that's the reality here.